Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Sean, and today we got a movie review for you. Today we're going to be talking about the recently released, just the other day, hot off the streaming presses. We're going to be talking about 2023's Lady Ballers. The film is directed by Jeremy Boring, written by Jeremy Boring, Brian A. Hoffman, Nick Sheehan. It stars Jeremy Boring, Daniel Constantine, Tyler Fisher, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: a down on his luck former high school basketball coach will do anything to win, which in this case means leading his team of men to don wigs and brutally dominate in multiple women's sports. So this is the new Daily Wire movie. We've talked about, I think, at least two of their other movies, two or three of them. Well, we've talked about, what did we talk about first? Run, Hide, Fight, which is not technically a Daily Wire joint. That was before, it was made before Daily Wire acquired it, and before Dallas Saunier and his formerly, what was it called? Cinestate Productions. Before that, was embroiled in some kind of Me Too scandal, and they ended up kind of parting ways with most of the people that they worked with in the Austin scene. A lot of people, whoa, big loud noise. A lot of people probably don't know this, but Dallas Saunier is actually the one responsible for rehabilitating Fangoria. Fangoria was like the other half of their operation. And one of the reasons why he did that is because he kind of wanted to prove a point about people that are conservative-minded or right-leaning aren't like sticks in the mud and they can tolerate other viewpoints. So he staffs Fangoria and a lot of the people at Cinestate, which there was a lot of crossover there, with a bunch of psychopaths that fucking ruined his company as soon as the opportunity presented itself. So I don't know if that's like a lesson learned or something, but it definitely made me laugh a little bit. It made me laugh to watch all the conservatards just cut and run from him as well. Because they actually had one that I paid for. And I don't normally pay for movie criticism these days because most of it's not very good. But I just wanted to support the idea. They have this kind of brother or sister companion site to Fangoria, which was called Rebeller, which was a little bit more kind of right or right of center kind of perspective wise. And they talked about a lot more kind of mainstream macho stuff from over the years. Well, not just mainstream. Actually, I take that back. Mainstream cult, kind of macho, tough guy stuff. You know, they're going to be talking a lot about things like Charles Bronson movies, Mad Max films, action movies of the 90s, direct-to-video stuff, cable stuff, and also whatever mainstream thing that was going on at the time. S. Craig Zoller was involved in that with that to some degree. I think he wrote a few editorials for it. And so I ended up supporting that for a little while that was still around. I think I own a couple issues of the new Fangoria. But when they restarted that, my wife wanted to surprise me and like do something nice. So she got me like a year subscription to Fangoria. But they basically closed their business for momentarily that year. So I only got 2 issues. I don't even know if my wife got a refund, but I only got 2 issues for that year. And yeah, until they rebranded again. I think they're still around. I'm pretty sure they still do a physical magazine, which I thought was a cool idea. And I was hoping that someday Rebeller would have like its own thing, because Rebeller had a lot of great writers. Anyways, so that's kind of your brief history on Cinestate. Bonfire Ventures. Is it Bonfire Ventures? Something like that. Dallas Saunier is still involved. Anyways, so they're making movies. They're making these movies. Lady Ballers. Their first comedy. It's kind of presented as a kind of a frat-ish comedy. They wanted to kind of make it in the tradition of, kind of 90s, somewhat kind of provocative, goofball, spoofy type humor. And I watched it for some reason. So I saw the trailer, and like I think a lot of people, I don't know what the real temperature is on this, because there's so many grifters out there that are just like, well, just affirm that it's good because they want it to be good. And I'll be honest, I want it to be good too. I want the parallel economy. I want the parallel systems to actually work. So I would like them to be good, but that trailer looked really bad. Like, it just didn't look good. It looked amateurish. It looked like a direct-to-video kind of shitty, like American Pie 8. It had that kind of vibe to the production. And not so much the jokes, just the production values. It just looks like one of those movies. It's kind of flat and boring looking, very uncinematic. I didn't have high hopes. I didn't have high hopes for that trailer. I didn't have high hopes for the product. I didn't think it was going to be a slam dunk, folks. I didn't think it was going to be a slam dunk. I kind of knew it wouldn't be. I guess in fairness to them, this is Jeremy Boring's his directorial debut. I think it's kind of like his debut as a writer. A lot of people maybe don't know this about a lot of the Daily Wire guys. Jeremy Boring, probably being the most prevalent of those of the main group, is basically just kind of a failed Hollywood guy. He wanted to go out there. He wanted to make movies. He wanted to tell stories. He talks about it in a very kind of precious, almost esoteric way, kind of the nature of storytelling and the importance of narratives in people's lives and how he wanted to be part of that tradition. And he has found a way to do that. He has found a way to do that and market this stuff directly to an audience that will kind of affirm it regardless of its quality. Because this is, ironically, message before story, message before character, and I would say even message before jokes. There's an inherent absurdity that they're tapping into that I think is well worth exploring. In fact, it has been explored. This is very kind of hack. The jokes are kind of hack. The concept itself is a little bit hack. If it wasn't for the socio-political times that we live in, and if it wasn't for crazy ideological weirdos, this movie is just a blip on the radar. If this movie came out in 1999, it comes out in 2003, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. It's not even worth remarking on. And I wish that the movie itself was more worthwhile. It's very amateurish. This was not ready for prime time, essentially. This was not ready to go into production. The script has all of the elements of something like this to make this movie work. I think all of the pieces are actually there from just a structure standpoint and an execution of jokes and kind of having story arcs and having characters that you kind of in some way invest in and kind of follow on a journey. The pieces are there, but there's a lot of problems with follow through. There's a lot of problems with kind of completing what I would call the arcs of the film. None of that is earned or pays off very well. And you could say it's a goofy comedy. Why does it matter? Because it does matter. Even if you watch something really ridiculous and kind of stupid, the movie this reminded me of the most in a lot of ways was the Trey Parker or Matt Stone starring movie. They didn't direct it. It was the guy who did the Naked Gun movies, directed it. Basketball. There's a lot of similarities between this and the movie Basketball, just in the type of humor that it is, the type of jokes that it tries to execute on. And Basketball, while is a stupid, goofy, kind of spoofed type joke movie, right? It's just a gag. It's a gag machine. It's a gag factory. Even that movie understands that you have to like the central characters and that you have to follow them through something. They all have to, at least one of them has to go through something. So in that movie, Trey Parker is the lead of the film, essentially, and you follow him as he kind of regains his confidence and finds love, etc. Becomes the hero sports star that he idolized when he was a kid. These guys that played sports, they were his heroes. They inspired him to want to be better, to do better. And in some way, the movie does that by the end of the film. Even that movie, which doesn't have it's not trying to make some kind of ideological argument or whatever. It doesn't have a message. It doesn't have anything. It's just a gag factory. Like I said, even that movie understands that stories demand that kind of follow through. They demand those kinds of arcs. They demand that kind of structure. And if they had taken more time with this script, I think you can whittle this into something that at least works. It is also about 20 to 25 minutes too long. it gets progressively worse as it goes. The setup for the movie, like I said, a lot of it has to do with the follow through, because the setups for like what the characters are going to experience or go through, like all that stuff is there. It's all present. It just never paid off. It's never executed on. Like the movie really, honestly, almost runs entirely out of gas after the first 50 minutes, I would say. And then the movie, because even though it's not great, it's moving. It's kind of popping. It has a kind of a pace, and it's starting to find a rhythm. It kind of falls into itself a little bit in a way that's like, okay, it works to the degree that it's working, and you can follow it, and you feel like you're invested. You're invested in some of it to one degree or another. You're at least curious to see how it's going to play out, but I don't know what it was. I mean, I know some of it's like a budget thing because this is a quote unquote low budget movie. I mean, they're calling it low budget, but I think it's one of their higher budgeted releases as of yet. Like this, I don't know if this is true. I don't remember where I heard this number, but I thought Jeremy Boring confirmed it. They cost them $7 million to make this movie. And you're going to watch this movie and you're not going to understand where the fuck all that money went. You're just not going to. It looks like $1 million movie. Like that they would not have spent more than $1 million. I don't know why they spent more than $1 million. Because as in the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh, well, the first 45 minutes, I was like, oh, okay. They said this cost $7 million. I can kind of understand like where the money is being spent, because the movie has a surprising amount of locations, like different locations. As in the first like hour, and then in the second hour, it's almost a 2-hour fucking movie, which is insane to have like a spoof fucking basketball movie that's 2 hours long. But anyways, it pretty much takes in place entirely on the court and on like bare like sets. I'm pretty sure they used that Ben Shapiro has like the Ben Shapiro morning show, his interview show. Like they just were utilizing what they had already on hand, what they already had available to them, which is understandable, obviously. But when you're telling me you also spent like $7 million, I'm like, what the fuck did you spend $7 million on? Maybe I'm just completely speaking out of turn here. I don't know. It seems like maybe it was because it was amateur hour. Maybe they got taken advantage of. Maybe they didn't know how to handle or kind of coordinate a budget correctly. Like, I don't know. I'm not seeing the money up on the screen. I'm not seeing the money on the screen. And, but yeah, I didn't love it. It actually it was kind of hard to watch by the end. I was just dying for it to be over. I will say the funniest stuff in the movie, the stuff that works the most is kind of the non sequitur jokes and the tangential stuff. That, the kind of throwaway gags, the one-liners. There's a few of them that actually land pretty well. Matt Walsh is surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, depending on your perspective, he kind of steals this movie, kind of steals the scenes he's in. And in fact, I kind of thought he would have been way more appropriate as the star, as the coach, the Jeremy Boring character. If you don't know, Jeremy Boring is one of the co-founders, co-CEOs of the Daily Wire. And I was watching him give an interview talking about it, and he was like, well, I didn't really want to star in it. Like, I didn't want to have to be the one that was going to have to. I would have loved to have cast somebody else, but we couldn't get anybody to come be in our movie because of the subject matter, and people didn't want to deal with the fallout of the subject matter and blah, blah, blah. So I had no choice but to take the lead role in Daily Wire raunchy comedy. And I'm calling bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that. I think this is, in some weird way, this is like a vanity project for that guy. He's not awful by any stretch of the imagination. Sure, obviously not like a professional actor, but he has a presence. He has a naturalistic quality to him. In fact, I would say this for most of the cast. I'm trying to think of anybody that sticks out in particular. Most of the cast is pretty okay. I know that a lot of the team is Daily Wire has like a sports branch. I think it's Crane and Company. I think those guys are the ones that do that podcast, like their sports podcast or whatever. And they're like kind of the main. That's the main cast. That's the ensemble there. So none of them are professional actors, but all of them were okay. At the very least, okay. Like nobody was atrocious. I have seen movies. I have seen Hollywood films with much worse acting by more seasoned actors, you know? Like, you know, whenever fucking what's his name? The director of the 40-Year-Old Virgin. You know who I'm talking about. That guy. He was good friends with Gary Shandling. He'll tell you all about it at any moment. What the hell's his name? But anyways, the guy who directed the 40-Year-Old Virgin, he oftentimes will put like kind of celebrities or sports stars. Like he put in the Amy Schumer movie, he put that basketball player that I'm also blanking on his name. You know who it is, the big famous one. That one. He put him in his movie, and that guy was fucking atrocious. Everybody's saying, oh, no, what a surprisingly great performance by this non-actor basketball player. He was not good. He was sub-Michael Jordan Space Jam, okay? That's the greatest basketball performance ever. Or maybe Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Airplane. But anyways, I digress. I thought he was okay, though. Like, he was okay, and I could see what he was going for. That's the thing about most of this movie, and then when you see a lot of the jokes, you see what they're going for, and you watch them fail at executing on it, which was kind of frustrating, because even just from like an objective kind of 40,000 feet in the air perspective, we're just looking down, trying to be objective, like, well, how could we make these things work? Like I said earlier, the material's there. There's just something about their post-production process, especially the editing, I think was really awful. And the script. I think a lot of this goes back to the script because a lot of the story problems when it comes to the pacing or the flow of the film, there's like missing connective tissue. Now that could have been, they could have had production issues. Maybe they couldn't film everything they wanted to film. It was a very hurried production. I think they shot this in 20 days. And then whatever, I'm not sure what the post-production process was like. I know Jeremy Boring also is, because they're really ramping up their kind of media side of things, their entertainment side rather. Well, I guess it's all technically media entertainment, but their scripted series side, and they're doing like the Pendragon cycle, which some fantasy series that I don't know. But anyways, he's been in Europe for 6-7 months, so he must have been doing production or post-production on this while he was shooting this other TV show, while he's out dealing with other things. So that could have affected things. That could have affected the way that the movie was put together, because it just feels like it needs a polish. Like that script needed a polish, like really bad. Like really, just to tighten it up, because it's not... There's a good movie here somewhere. Like there's a funny movie in here somewhere. Not the one that they put out, though. It's too fucking long. The script has no focus. The story just is not focused enough. And it's too in love with its own farts, like the smell of its own farts. It's too in love with itself. It's too in love with the fact that it's a message movie. And that's all it's about. It's just there to service that. Now, you can do that, but you better have a good fucking movie if that's the case. You know, a lot of people, they complain about, oh, people don't like the woke stuff. They don't like this woke shit, this woke garbage, these Disney, these Marvel movies, all this stuff, etc. And I largely agree with a lot of what they say. But I'll tell you this. If the movie is well written and well directed, it doesn't matter how woke it is. You're not going to care. You're not going to give a shit. There are so many like woke movies that you like that you're not even aware that are like technically woke movies. I had like a big revelation a couple years ago. I saw this movie called Under the Skin, I think it's called. Scarlett Johansson. She plays like this hunting alien. She's like an alien that's taken the form of a woman, and she goes out and she kind of traps men and sucks their life force out. But it's like a super indie movie. It's very unique. It's very cool. It's very weird. It's very cool. I really love it. I love that fucking movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I'd put it on my top 10. It is woke as fuck. Like, the message of the movie is woke as fuck. But it's really well made, and it's really well performed. So you kind of don't care. That's true anywhere. So you have to make a movie like Lady Ballers. You can have something like this and even have the overt kind of messaging that it does, but it's got to be good. It's got to be funny. And you cannot rely purely on the absurdity of men dressing like women and playing sports against other women and pretend, like you can't just rely on that. There had to be more there. I would say the brightest spot in the movie is the one person that is kind of like a professional actor, comedian, Tyler Fisher. He was in another Daily Wire movie, Terror on the Prairie. He kind of got canceled, I guess, at least from what I understand. He got canceled a few years ago, but he was just a working comic for a long time, most of his career. I mean, he's done spots on Last Week with John Oliver, Not Your Average Cat Video, La La Land parody, Chicago Med. Yeah, so he's done a lot of bits. He did a lot of stand-up. He's going to be doing some voice acting, but now he's kind of plugged into the Daily Wire, I think, ecosystem. He's like he's like their funny guy now. It's only a matter of time before they develop a series or something or make a movie with him as the star. But he is by far not because of like his character or anything, but he just knows how to deliver comedy. Like you could just tell, like he saw the material. He knew how to put the pieces together in a way that would that hits the right notes, right? A lot of the other guys, because they're amateurs, because they're not comedians, maybe they're funny kind of bro type guys on their podcasts. I think I've listened to their podcast maybe like, I think when that Riley Gaines, remember the swimmer who makes a cameo in this movie, a very brief cameo, but I think when they interviewed her, they were one of the first people to interview her, and I think that's what I've seen of their stuff. So I don't really know too much about them outside of that. And they're not bad or anything, but they're just kind of amateur. That's all. And you just can kind of feel that. You sense it. Especially when that Tyler guy's around. You really feel how much more like seasoned and in control of his character than he is than the rest of the cast. Like he knows how to almost like kind of build a character, build an arc, have a verisimilitude, like, and not fuck with that. And he just finds the right tone and the right balance. So I guess kudos to him. This is not worth getting a Daily Wire subscription for. I know they're trying to get people right now because they are doing like 50% off for the year or whatever. I did not partake in that. They got like $10 for the movie. I saw a few other things too. Jeremy Boring talking about kind of their release schedule, because I think he was on like Tim Pool's podcast or something, and I was just kind of learning. I was watching interviews with him just to kind of learn about the production of Lady Ballers, because I figured I'd watch it and I'd talk about it at some point. And like, what was the point I was gonna make? What was I gonna say? Shit, I just lost it. He was on Tim Pool talking about something. Oh, he was talking about their release plans, schedules, whatever. Somebody super chatted and said something to the effect like, why don't you put this on VOD? Like have it maybe premiere or have a window of exclusivity and then put it on VOD or license it out. And he's like, well, Netflix doesn't do that. Netflix doesn't license things out. They don't, their original series and stuff. So we're not going to do that. I'm like, dude, before Netflix had like a giant library of Netflix stuff, Netflix licensed tons and tons and tons and tons of movies from other studios. There was a lot of incentive to get a subscription to Netflix to watch movies on. They didn't need a bunch of original material. You guys have nothing but original material, and you don't have very much. You have like 4 or 5 movies. You have like 3 documentary series. And then you just have some Jordan Peterson lectures, which, if I'm not mistaken, are slowly being released to the public now. Although, I mean, like 2 years later, but they're slowly coming out on his channel, I believe. But that's all they have. Like, that's not going to like entice people to want to go in and invest in their company. Like, you gotta make a movie like Lady Ballers. Actually would have been the perfect kind of marketing tool. It's a commercial for your website. Go out, have it at like a reduced rental rate, dude. Have it be like a $2.99 thing on Amazon. Maybe don't let people buy it if that's your concern, because the alternative is people will just pirate it. So you're just not going to get any money. Like, the people that want to watch your movie might not want to sign up for Daily Wire. They might not want to make that kind of financial commitment. But if you tell them it's like $3, maybe they will. Maybe they would. Maybe they would. I'd say it's a release. It's like, I have never understood that about Daily Wire. I remember, I think I talked about this all the way back when they did like Run, Hide, Fight, or Shut In was another movie, the one that Vincent Gallo does like basically like an extended cameo in. I was like, why don't they put these out on like VOD for rental? Just to get the word out there. Like, you're trying to build a brand. You're trying to build a brand. You're trying to build a brand, like with movies that have a particular style, a particular tone. Maybe you have like a certain stable of actors or something, kind of like a lot of the people down in Austin have, kind of like Cinestate had before it was canceled. Before Dallas Saunier had to go out and start another company that was pretty much just Cinestate 2. And now he works almost exclusively, I think, with the Daily Wire. But yeah, it's not. This is not. Maybe don't put out Lady Ballers. If they were to like put out a movie right now to try to get people onto their site, out of everything they've released, I'd probably go with Run, Hide, Fight. That is by far the best one, and it was the one that was made outside of their purview, outside of their ecosystem. But yeah, listen, I want these things to work. I want these movies to be good. I want there to be kind of an alternative, independent ecosystem out there. Especially even as somebody, I'm getting older and stuff, but I still want to. Like, one day I still want to make a movie. Right now, I'm planning on making like maybe a short or something like that. I'm working on a kind of a Southern Fried Giallo short film. And I still have aspirations, and it would be awesome if I had other opportunities, like that I didn't have to try to go hobnob with the studio, or I didn't have to kind of be that. Maybe I could be kind of more of a normal person and have a pathway to achieve something like this through these kind of micro studios, these independent outlets, something like the Daily Wire. Maybe that would be a thing that could happen, but they have to be successful for that to actually occur, for that to take place. Like, this could just be a giant waste of money for them. They could just be pouring millions and millions and millions of dollars into something that will never go anywhere, and no one will ever really see outside of like a small number of people when it came out. And it's all going to get deleted off the internet in the near future. It's not like they're putting out physical media. They should be, though. They should be printing those Blu-rays, printing those discs. But yeah, so I would like them to be good. I know why they're not. It's because they're amateurs, which is no shade. Everybody starts somewhere, myself included, right? Like, that's not something to throw shade. It is what it is. Like, it's an amateur production. It felt like an amateur production that wants to have the pomp and circumstance of something that's not amateurish. There's the fact this movie cost $7 million is a fucking crime, and somebody should be arrested. Like, somebody stole a bunch of money. Like, how the fuck did you do that? Or scale your movie down so it doesn't have to cost $7 million. Like, that's fucking crazy. This little basketball comedy costs $7 million fucking dollars. There's no way. It cannot be true. But until I hear differently, that's what I'm gonna say. Trying to think. Anything else? Any final thoughts about Lady Ballers? Not really. I'm pretty, like, by the end of the day, I probably won't remember this. By the end of the day, I probably will not remember much about Lady Ballers. I watched it a few hours ago. I've been thinking about it for about an hour. But it's probably not going to do anything. Not going to do anything super great. Not for anybody. Not for anybody involved. Actually, well, it seems like the public reception has been very positive. Like, I was watching, I think Tim Pool's got like the Pop Culture Crisis, like a podcast. So the influencers, the rightoid influencers, kind of some of the more like the bigger names, are just heaping praise on this movie. They're like, well, you just can't make these kinds of movies. Hollywood would never release something like this. Well, they probably would, actually, because it's for all the offensive talk. Like, if you just think the concept is offensive, sure, but the movie itself is not actually that offensive, and it even tries to, in some ways, offers some level of sensitivity or sympathy towards people that maybe find themselves confused about their gender identity. But yeah, I really do. Like I said, really hope this works, because you know what happened the last time? Like, indie was a thing. I was talking to my wife about this because she watched like the last little bit of the movie with me, and we were just kind of talking about when we grew up. You know, indie being kind of like this new category. It was like a new genre in and of itself. It was just indie, just cheap movies, like because they all have a kind of a particular aesthetic. Oftentimes dealing with kind of whatever the social topics of the time. Usually the ones that were kind of the more provocative ones. You remember like Trans America, Doom Generation, 24-hour party people, things like that came to mind. And I was like, yeah, I remember it was like that for like the 80s and like the 90s, where we kind of mainstreamed and elevated a lot of this indie stuff because kind of more serious artists, more serious actors were getting involved in it. But it wasn't long before studios themselves, like Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, they just went up and scooped up a bunch of indie labels. And so while indie movies were coming out, they were actually just studio movies. They're actually just studio movies that they spent less money on the productions of, but still spent like $100 million on marketing. Especially like Trans America. Remember that movie? Like, I know that movie cost $10 to make, but the marketing for that movie was fucking pretty substantial. Like, definitely had a studio behind it. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. I did not love this movie. I didn't think it was very funny. I chuckled a couple times. It definitely made me laugh at least 2 or 3 times, I think. It was mostly kind of frustrating the longer it went on, especially because you could see the things that they're trying to do, and you could see the things that could have worked. And maybe if they had taken more time with this, whether they had more time to shoot it or more time just to work on that script, just to get those jokes tighter, get those characters tighter, get the arcs tighter, just shrink everything down to its essential, to what it's most essential about the story. It's about, and it should be about the jokes as well. You know, story, character, those are important things, but those things can be slight, but the jokes, they got to land. They got to be solid. And I did not really find that here. But anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys next time right here on ZooBox.